morning. Hope you have a good night in Sofia. Okay, it's to speak about yesterday in the almost all of the panels was everybody mentioned translators. How important are they for all different games in the literary field? How to choose the title. Of course, translators helps a lot. They taking this role as a scouts or advocates of the national literature abroad. And for sure, translators are one of the most important players to spreading literature abroad, not only because of her work as a translator, but as a really scouts, literary agents, and the different roles that they take. The second thing for translators, of course, is how they will survive, which is not easy, as every one of us know. There was a joke, let's say pity joke, and translator, the Mexican translator from Bulgarian into Spanish, Renaud Perez Vasquez, once said that there is a lot of exotic ways to suicide, and one of the most exotic is to be a translator from Bulgarian. Which is for many years was very, very, very close to the truth. But now we live in a different times. As yesterday we've heard a lot of good, positive tendencies on the interest of the foreign publishers, not only on Bulgarian literature, but in all of the literatures in the Balkans or in the less known literatures and in the States, as we yesterday, from yesterday we know that there is no small languages or small literatures or small nations. There is less interested or less known literatures and states. But still the situation is not easy. Of course, one of the biggest questions always, they always ask me from the institutions or readers or even authors, how to help the translators, what is them need, how we can manage to make them feel better, to give them to be secure, working as a translator of a small, not small, but less known literature like Bulgarian. There is a different ways. And my great colleagues, the panelists today, will give us some of these possible ways how to work and to help translators and translations to spread along the world. Of course, there is a different possibility at the end after them presentations. I will speak again about some of the organizations which is really helps in this transition of translations, like ENLIT. I don't know, maybe some of you knows what is ENLIT, European Network for Literary Translations, which unite 34 now, I think, or 35. In Frankfurt we took the 35th member, Malta. The national institutions supporting translations in European countries. Of course, there are more than the number of the countries in European Union, because there is countries with more than one organization. For example, in Spain, they have the Spanish Book Center, the head of Ainhoa Sanchez, and there is a Ramon Llull Institute, who support Catalonian language and translations, and they have the Basque Center for Literature, etc., etc. this is the one of the possible way to working together, all the national institutions, and to stay together, trying to explain to European Union how our situation is, how we're trying to support translation. You know, European Union always put the spreading of literature and translation as one of the main goals of the European Union. Or, for example, Traduki network, which is very important, especially here in the Balkans, for the connection between 10 Balkan countries only. Greece actually is not a member of Traduki. It was, but there was a national decision to leave the Traduki network. But still, we hope, really cross my fingers, I'm one of the advocates of Greece to be back in Traduki. But anyway, 10 Balkan countries and 4 German-speaking countries like Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland. Together we exchange and support translations of our literatures, support residencies, and support festivals. Again, my panelists will speak in all these different possibilities, festivals, residency, and of course, public money supporting translation. First, I'll give floor to Michalis, and let's see what happens now in this field.
We will start with a topic a little bit broader, I would say. It's not about translation per se. It's about the publishers, the agents, and the book professional. So it's about the wider industry, and we will talk about for the next 20 minutes professional programs and publishing fellowships and international book fairs. Doesn't click. Okay, great. So thank you. So let me first thank Next Page Foundation and Monica personally, who does a lot of this organizing. And so I'll talk about the subject coming from the background that actually doing work with publishers, supporting them with thinking, from consulting, technology, and design. But also thinking now creates the professional program at the Limassol International Book Fair. So I'm also an organizer. I'm of course also a participant as an audience in fellowships and professional programs. I come from a relatively smaller book market, the Greek-speaking one, meaning Greece and Cyprus. And this is important also because this kind of programs are much more important for smaller markets. And I think this conference happens in the context of ThinkPub. And ThinkPub, in a way, we can define it as a curriculum-based, in-depth professional program. Okay, so this is the relevance, I would say. So what underpins this proliferation of professional programs and publishing fellowships at international book fairs? I think the one thing is globalization, European integration, probably the reason we are here today. The rise of Global South, much more appetite for smaller markets, the resilience of in-person events, despite what we were thinking during COVID, and of course, year-round, 24/7 digital communication. All this creates a context for more direct relationships, which are less mediated by the global publishing hubs, which of course still remain central. So now it means it is much more appetite and need to, from Greece to speak to Bulgaria and so on. This is the globalization part, but there is also a new prioritization of capacity building. This has to do with the challenges of digital transformation, that publishing itself has been professionalized much more. It is more understood nowadays as a craft, not just as an art. And the overall organizational maturity of these events. And the third aspect is the emergence of book policies, which just means not just policies, but also funding for all this. The book fairs, the international book fairs themselves have evolved. So they started, most of them, as an event for readers. The mostly professionals only book fairs are kind of an exception in this context. They have added rights training, and they have also added learning and networking. And what we see is more and more professional programs being added, expanded, and emphasized. So let's go and see what are the professional programs at the international book fairs. I have tried to identify, let's say, 10 components of what this includes. So it's about stands, right center, casual networking, our beloved parties at the book fairs, sessions, which may vary a lot, can be organized as conferences, could be talks, panel discussions, workshops, even mentoring. The fellowships, where I'm talking mostly about the publishers' fellowships, but there are fellowships also for translators, for booksellers. And an older version of that, which includes a stand, was the invitation program, guest of honor, which has a professional aspect, exhibitions for visual contents, awards for professionals, not just for the authors, some translation grants tied to the book fair, like in Sharjah or Abu Dhabi. And also this includes working meetings from publishers associations, federations, and so on, which happen in the context of the book fairs. So why they matter? In a way, if you have a professional program, then it's the time that you are really something more than a reading festival or an exhibition of books. That's what distinguishes it. So they matter, first of all, because face-to-face is critical. If you want to build trust, create relationships. They are fast-paced events, so you can meet a lot of people, cover a lot of topics. It's important for onboarding, but also for expanding. And if you want to have contacts in the market, it is one of the best ways to have really context and in-depth understanding of the market. It's not just transactional. They also set the agenda, what is trending, what are the topics of the industry, and of course they're critical for capacity building, especially in smaller and emerging markets. In a way, they are the unofficial curriculum, let's say, of global publishing, especially in countries where there is very little formal training. They also give a flair of going beyond the transactional at the book fair, and it is the place where leaders and experts are showcased, are developed, and so on. Overall, they raise a lot the international profile of the book fair, even much more than the cultural program, I believe, in some cases. So what makes them successful? Let's start with the strategic aspect. So, of course, it's always about strategy and continuity, but it is also about niche. You have to find your own style, aims, topic, regions you want to work with. You can not do everything, obviously. You need to be very well balanced between the cultural diplomacy aspect, also known as geopolitics, the public relations aspect, which is very much present, and the actual core, which is business. So you cannot do just, let's say, politics. That's my main message here. It's not that of course, you need organizational skills. You have to be a good networker, but it is best when it is combined with actual business expertise. It's not about events organizing. You have also to strike the right balance between meetings, learning, and the whole cultural experience. And should be also program coherence. So one of the main problems I see many times is you hear about a professional program and it's actually a bunch of panels, not really something coherent. And you need partnerships at all levels and engagement of the local industry. And there are a lot of synergies between the cultural and professional program. Sometimes the author brings the publisher and the publisher brings the author, not necessarily at the same event. And overall, I would say that the bedrock of this on the strategic level is how important is the hosting book market. I'm thinking of London, for example, who had many organizational programs, but if you have the UK market behind you, you will always be an important event. So going to the practical aspect, there are many things that are really important when it comes to the practical aspects. For example, you must have professional days, because most of the book fairs are like for many days because they are mostly for the reader, or professional only days. you should have dedicated time for meetings. So to avoid people skipping the seminars in order to go to meetings. I know this is not possible in Frankfurt, but in other book fairs it is possible. The platforms for scheduling meetings actually work, and they work for new contacts and they work for newcomers a lot. I have seen that in Sharjah working very well. And the organizers should be proactive about the facilitation of contacts, and also in a way, the organizers should coach the speakers with preparatory calls, maybe emails, especially in markets where there is not much experience around these things. You need early regular days and any supportive material you may have. So I would say that this learning, trading, learning, and networking are kind of the three key elements of the professional programs mix. When they work together, when they reinforce each other, we are on a very good path. Let's go to fellowships, which is actually a way, it is one of the components, although it may be independent of the professional programs. So here I can identify 7 components. The one is that there is an open and competitive application process. It's not by invitation. I know there is great variety, but I'm trying to systematize a little bit. Also, the fellowships means that organizer covers accommodation and or travel. They cover some travel expenses. It is about on-site visits, also to publishing houses, bookstores, even libraries. Of course, you have a learning part, sessions and so on, one-to-one meetings, again, casual networking, parties and so on, and also includes, because it is this kind of experience, some organized cultural and touristic activities at the location. Here, I mean, there is also some cases, I'm thinking of, let's say, Istanbul, and not only, there is a standalone fellowship, a fellowship without a book fair, which is interesting because in a way it is a lean approach. So you get everything you would get in a professional program of a book fair without the overhead of the stands and the expo place. And there is also a reverse fellowship, that's a term I coined, which is then when, let's say, the French organize a visit, which is a fellowship-like visit, like in Greece or in other places. The BF does that a lot. So, why they matter? Essentially, the fellowships are an extended, immersive, and exclusive first-hand on-site experience. So it's not anymore just about networking, it more creates often community. It turns on its head the trade visitor economy. So instead of you paying to go, stay, pay a ticket for a table, a stand, or a trade visitor ticket, they actually pay you. Okay, the fellowship organizer. They impressively boost international participation and the rights trading, and also a lot of this has to do with awareness. Also, there is some knowledge transfer, and the thing is that if you visit the country, you have many more opportunities. It's much more possible that you publish something from there. It's also good for all the new contacts, and it creates a momentum, a positive momentum of bringing many more professionals to the book fair beyond the ones you have invited. Also, there is, the application. It's not just about the event. It extends to the application process, and it also creates networks of alumni and lifelong relationships. What makes it successful? I need to stress a lot that small is beautiful in that case, so you don't necessarily need 30 people coming to have a fellowship because it is about community. And of course, you can scale up. You have to subsidize participation, but you should not overdo it if you want to if you don't want to have too many people coming along for the ride. And you have, of course, to choose the fellows wisely. I mean, you need a mix of all the new people, established and newcomers, and of course, geographic matters too. The geographic aspect matters too. People always complain that the fellows have come to sell and not to buy. I think the distinction there is not that strict, so we have to be more lenient in that respect. You don't need just publishers and agents. You also need experts and networkers, people who introduce to the market and to introduce to the topics. It is better if you factor in the cultural and recreational aspects than having people leaving their program to go to the pyramids, let's say in Cairo. That's why they have a full day that you go to the pyramids in Cairo, so you are covered. Now you can stay at the program. And also, it is important to break the fellows bubble, because it is there is a bubble that you see many people talking together when they are the fellows, and very little interacting with the local market. So it is in general important to have early local insights and to facilitate contacts with the locals. So in my view, this is the full life cycle of a publishing fellowship, the full benefits, which starts with applying, a very important aspect, attending, and it's also the alumni network. I mean, Frankfurt, the alumni part, Frankfurt does it best, and other part too, but I mean, they are very prominent, but there's such a network. So closing in, coming to the end, we'll talk a little bit about our experience in Limassol. I don't go through all the things we do and the professional program. So Limassol is a 3-day annual event. We have Friday only for professionals, so it is not open to the public, apart from some visits from schools. It is the conference, and we have introduced on Saturday a B2B space, we call it. So the idea was that this is a combination of a business center and bar camp. So the idea was that we condensed, let's say, we make a focal point of 2 hours for everyone to come to network and to meet, apart what you can do unofficially, in order to engage, to ensure local engagement. And I think we are quite proactive in facilitating contacts between the market and the internationals. And overall, I believe we have a flagship professional program. In a way, it has raised awareness about the Limassol International Book Fair, much more, of course, than the cultural program and so on. In a way, it is known to the people who it is known, mostly about the professional program. So coming to conclusion, three short thoughts. The one is that we said trading, learning, and networking are parts of the professional program. Trading tends to be fast. Learning and networking are more slow processes. And the thing is that we need both. And I would say that international book fairs are better at being fast in all their aspects. And fellowships can be both fast and slow. They are more immersive. Like in tech products and services, people who are really serious about fellowships should make their own fellowship. And when they do, it is better to organize programs that you would like to attend. Thank you. I was on time.
That was absolutely great, Michalis, as always. You really make a great job, not only in Limassol, but you consult a lot of fellowships in, and actually I was part of the first fellowship in Thessaloniki book fair 3 years ago, made by Nopi Hadjigeorgiou with your help and associations of Greece publishers. It was amazing, and now after just only 3 years, you can see how it's developed and how great it's become, and how is the input in the professionalization of the Thessaloniki Book Fair, and how important it is for the international part of the book fair. Before to give you for the questions, we'll have a Q&A session after every presentation, because after an hour to going back to the first will not be better than this one. I want to really congratulate and to express my happiness that we have our fellowship in Sofia, created last year by Gergana Pancheva from Literary Agency Sofia, with partnership of the House of Translations and Literature and Next Page Foundation and Bulgarian Book Association, which is really amazing, and I'm so happy that I see almost everything as a good practices, as the best practices in the fellowship, in our fellowship. last year, and I'm sure for this year will be the same or even better. Of course, there is one very, very, very important thing when we speak about these slow things, learning, networking, etc., and this is sustainability. This is something that we really felt to present and to explain to the politicians usually how important is sustainability and supporting, you know, not to apply every year, let's say, for programs and things like this, but to know that you have money for the fellowship or for the book fairs, etc. But this is other story. Okay, let's move to the residencies, the other really important part of this chain of supporting translation and spreading literature. Adriyana Paneva from the House of Literature and Translation and the Next Page Foundation will show the only residence in Bulgaria that we have.
Yeah, hello, my name is Adriyana Paneva and I'm for almost 2 years now part of the team of the Literary and Translation House and Next Page Foundation. So about the Sofia Literary and Translation House, it was established in 2015 as an initiative of Next Page Foundation. We can thank Yana Genova for this. I have to mention it. It's an initiative of the foundation and the Sofia municipality. And it's an actual house. It's a real house. I believe most of you have been there. Even some of you have been there yesterday. Know how wonderful house it is, how cozy it is. And it has great history. And this history, you can feel it somehow and feel comfortable there. It was built in the 30s, and for around 40 years there was living a painter whose name was Nenko Balkansky. And yeah, I think this creative spirit is still there. Yeah, we are. The initiative is project-based. We are not paying rent to the Sofia municipality, but they are supporting us with giving us the house and yeah, with some of the expenses there. About the residency program. So it was found in 2015, as I said, and here are some numbers. For these 10 years, we have almost 100 residents. They are from more than 30 countries. Most of them are translators. Translators from Bulgarian to other languages, but at the same time we have residents who are writers, researchers, or literary agents, all kinds of professionals who are working in the literary field. So if you are not exactly a translator, don't worry, you can apply and join us. There are around, we cannot count them exactly, but more than 25 books who are translated or translated in the house and now are published. We are really happy for that. And these are the wonderful people who are part of our residency program. We were speaking yesterday that each residency program depends on the person who is into. There are people who are more active, wants to meet more people. There are others that are want to focus more on their work. So going to a residence, you can find what fits best for you. And there are people who are using the residency as a break of their 100 jobs back home, or as scouting, searching for new titles, searching for new authors. They're using it to train their languages, be active in a real atmosphere where the language is speaking, and at the same time use it as a place where they can work and focus on their work. So yeah. Home away from home. This was the title of our presentation. How to apply. So first you can visit our webpage. We have different open calls. You can see which one is active at the moment. You can apply through the year. And for sure subscribe to our newsletter, as this way you will receive all these open calls and different opportunities in your mailbox, and you can follow our social medias channels. And this is a picture of our residents for the past around 2 years. Some of them are writers, some of them are translators. Just now, our resident is Maria Andrašević. She is from Croatia and she is a writer. She has been here yesterday. So we have the residency program, but we have the actual house. So we are using it pretty actively. We have a lot of events happening there. This is what we've done for the past 10 years. We have more than 150 events. Some of them were open to the public, others are closed. So there were trainings and workshops for translators or other literary professionals. So a lot of is happening under this roof. Our residents can be part of all these events if they feel comfortable, because as we say, people are different. Some do not feel like participating in events and others are really fond of this. So it depends on the person. Yes, these are pictures from our event. We have wonderful yard where most of the events are happening if the weather is okay, but sometimes we're using our venues, different venues as today. Yeah, this is one of our cats. We have cats in the yard, as we start with the cats yesterday. And again, you can follow our social channels and the webpage for more information for what is happening, or if you would like to apply, you can always write us and discuss different opportunities that will fit your profile.
Thank you. And now I give the floor to Yana Genova to see what public investments and how small are they in translation for us across Europe.
Actually, I hate quoting myself, but since Tom Phillips was mentioned, before we started, I offered him for his personal slogan to have the phrase "contributing to solving the 3% problem," because he has personally contributed to solving the famous 3% problem of the English language as being not really opened to translations. So thank you, Tom. Yes, I can imagine for us over these 2 days it's a little bit difficult to switch from the logic of the industry, from the business logic that some of you here represent and present on stage. The logic of the literary translators, the logic of the quality publishers, as we heard yesterday, for example, of publishers who say, I don't care how much I sell, it's not about the sales. And now here we were talking about, again, non-market initiatives. And I will complicate further the picture by talking a little bit about another aspect of our book world in translations in Europe, and that's what we call public investments. Public investments meaning all forms of support coming from either national governments, local level municipalities, regions, and the European Union. I speak from the perspective of somebody who has been both on the policy-making side, on the application side, on the evaluation side, and basically in all possible positions in these complex constellations. And I think it's why is it important to talk about this in such a forum? Why bother at all to monitor what's going on with the public investments in translations? Well, first of all, of course, we are all taxpayers. So as taxpayers, I think we should be interested as to where our money goes. You as publishers, I can imagine, you also have direct interest, but I'm not going to tell you today how to win a grant from any national governments. I do that in designated trainings for that. but I think we should be interested in what's going on with translation funding also as citizens of Europe, because with the political transformations, with the rise of nationalistic policies and the radical policies here and there and basically everywhere in Europe, I think that the way governments and the European Commission take decisions, they are deeply political, and in that way they influence not only the business that you're in, but also the political circumstances we live in. I'm dealing only with grants. There are many ways that public money supports the book sector. Of course, it could be, or public measures towards the book sector, ranging from, of course, tax or legislative initiatives such as VAT reductions or fixed book prices, etc. There is a variety of what we call policy instruments to support the translation sector, such as residencies, professional programs, direct support to literary translators, the professional development programs for literary translators, etc., etc., etc. Many of them. I'll talk a little bit, maybe not a little bit, only for the grants program. So that money going directly to publishers for their publishing initiatives. And there are many, when public organizations, so when governments or other public organizations do that, they invest this money from very different perspectives. And I think we have to be sensitive as to why public money are spent, our taxpayers' money are spent on translations. Historically, for example, there have been huge programs, UNESCO or American programs, investing public money from the development perspective, for example, into the Arab world. Throughout the 60s, 70s, even up to the 80s, there were quite a lot of money into translations into Arabic, mostly from English, but also French. So the whole of Enlightenment thought of Europe or the Western Hemisphere being translated into Arabic. There have been large translation initiatives in socialist times, when socialist countries have been exporting ideological materials to the West with the idea to spread the propaganda. Nowadays, there are various perspectives. Michalis mentioned one of that, why governments are investing into translations, and that's the cultural diplomacy perspective, claiming that culture is the soft factor in international diplomacy. That's the most widespread, perhaps, but there is also the regional cooperation argument. Some Nordic countries, the Traduki program that Svetlo mentioned is supporting out of that perspective. Okay, the regions should stay together somehow. There are programs that start from the idea of cultural autonomy for certain languages, like Catalan or Basque, for example, but also other minority languages. What is common for all of them is that they talk about, they think of themselves as being starting from the market correction rationale. So they say, okay, translations require additional investments for the publishers. So here we are and markets, there are often small markets for these translations. So that's why we put our taxpayers' money into translations. Now, here is an example, though, of the inner tensions that are in this seemingly in this seemingly nice picture of cultural diplomacy and all of us talking to each other and being united in diversity. This is a quote from the Bulgarian funding program jury committee opinion on
let's say
yes,
a juror committee.
Thank you. That was the reaction I was expecting. The book is, René Karabash is a prominent contemporary author, translated already into a number of languages, an author of the Sofia Literary Agency, I think. But here we have everything in one sentence, and that's popularity. So they talk about, they see the tension between the economic capital, what Bourdieu calls the economic capital, success, the social capital, and representativeness. The idea that whatever is exported from peripheral languages should be representative. And then, of course, in all these programs, when you read the materials, you can see how the idea of what is representative and what is not is changing, and the criteria for quality, so to speak, are also changing, and how the complicated relationship between the logic of the industry and the logic of the representativeness is changing over time. Some of the governmental programs that you as publishers, I guess, know of, for example, the Nordic ones or the Dutch one with the Dutch Literature Foundation, they have a much more flexible understanding of what is national author. For example, you can apply for Dutch citizens, authors that are Dutch citizens but write in Arabic, and you can apply to translate their book no matter that it's not written in Dutch. Yes, sorry, I'll jump. Yes, these programs are very different in terms of budgets. Here are some examples of 3 national programs and how their budget changes over time. I'm following these developments throughout the years. As you can see, there are vast discrepancies. Below there are the number of titles supported within the latest 4-year period on average. Bulgaria 18, Slovenia 165, etc., etc. The newcomer into this field is, of course, Ukraine, which bravely, consistently, and I have to say very professionally, started supporting outbound translations from Ukrainian after the start of the war, no matter the difficult circumstances. It's interesting what the outcomes of this program are, but I'm not gonna bother you with that.
Sorry to interrupt you. 18 for Bulgaria. It's for which
average
year?
Average for the last 4 years period. All of these numbers are the average for these programs. Bulgarian goes ups and downs. Thank you for the question. The Bulgarian budget goes ups and downs, not for no particular strategic reason, but because of inconsistency in the cultural policy. The Slovenian budget, on the contrary, goes up and down for a very particular strategic reason, and that's Frankfurt Book Fair, guest of honor, where Slovenia started preparing, Slovenia started preparing for very much on time, and we all know the results and the effects of this are to come. Now there are vast discrepancies in terms of budget. I'm not showing you the Swedish budget because you're gonna have a heart attack, or the Norwegian, but the Finnish program, for example, which is one of my favorite, I have to say, as a modus operandi, but also as the way they monitor their effect. The Finnish program has, for some years now, has commissioned to independent consultants a research on the effect of the program, the economic effect. And mind you, they invest around from 350 to 400,000 euro a year in outbound translations from Finnish. What's getting to the country back is around 3 million per year as rights and royalties. So less than 500,000 versus 3 million. Of course, that includes the mummies. Thank you, Ivan. Yes, I know. That includes the mummies, which is the long tail, how do you call it? The long tail of the mummies, of the mummies. But yet, I mean, it's clearly has all cultural diplomacy arguments apart. It clearly pays back economically. So yeah, discrepancies here are also very intriguing if we look at the numbers of the original title production. For example, Slovenia produces roughly twice less original Slovenian books per year than Bulgaria, but invests 4 times more in outbound translations. So that tells you something about the, so to speak, how much the public, how much the government cares about the local authors. Similarly, I'm not going to discuss Finland, at least not now. Some statistics about how successful these programs are in terms of outbound translations. I pick a few examples. You can see here some tendencies. For example, German is present in all 5 national schemes that I looked at, which confirms a discovery we have made years ago within the translation report that we presented yesterday, that German remains the transfer language for peripheral European languages. No matter that French is becoming more and more open to translation, still for us, Central Eastern Europe, but also Nordic countries, German remains important. The other thing that is obvious here, I think, is the certain tendency to regionalisms that still remains. Nathan, you asked whether how do professional programs select whom to invite and whether we invite people from the regions mostly. But here, this is based on of course, the interest of the publishers, and we still see that some programs are more successful into reaching out beyond the immediate neighbors than others. The third thing which is not here, the third tendency which is not here in this table, because these are the top 10 languages of outbound translations, is that some programs are more successful than others, but that there is a general tendency growing in the last 10 years of exporting to non-European markets. And here, to all of you as publishers, I really urge you to lobby with your national governments to do that more, because this is a way to open pathways to you as publishers to bigger markets in China, Korea, even Indian languages. Bulgaria, by the way, not really. The Bulgarian funding program has 1 book in Mexico and 1 in Argentina, and that's it.
In Brasilia, 1 too.
Oh, Brasilia, okay. Now, European, yes. Okay, I'll pause for a while. Okay, yes, thank you for the applause. This is a visualization, I know, apart from looking nice, we can spend the next 3 hours talking about this one. But this is what happens with with the largest funding scheme we have in Europe, and that's the so-called Circulation of European Literature Works scheme that funds once a year. There is an open call and funds translations throughout Europe, not just member states, with the mission to support unity in diversity, but also to correct the imbalances between small and big languages present in translations across Europe. So small to big is a priority, so to speak. What happens in the last few years, just very quickly, 10 years ago, English was the dominant source language of this European funding program. Now with Brexit, but not only, English is still eligible source language, but with Brexit it disappeared completely. Not completely, but the other top three, the big three, French, German, and Spanish, the proportion of these big three as source languages is going down, which means we have more variety. And Michalis also pointed in the beginning that we all have the feeling we are getting closer to each other and there is more variety, and this is also proven now it's statistically proven. So the translations from the big four over the last 10 years, they fall from 45% of all funded translations. We are talking some 5,000 titles here to 29. In the top recipient languages, there are also some changes with, of course, Ukraine being the big newcomer and with Ukraine being a priority of most of the cultural funding programs of the Commission. So Ukraine, in a way, replaced the other top recipient languages over the years that were Hungarian, Bulgarian, and Slovene. Some small interesting thing, European Union Literature Prize that I bet some of you are familiar with. It played a significant role in this funding program because publishers were getting automatic points in the selection criteria for the program. So there was a kind of an affirmative action for the prize winners. And that in my previous research, I looked into the translation career paths of different European authors that got the award, just to find that it had immense effect on really small languages like Maltese or Montenegrin authors. But mostly the most popular authors in translation, award winners, were again the ones coming from the so-called West and writing in bigger languages. Anyway, some years ago, the program dropped off this affirmative action towards the European Union Literature Prize winners. The effect was immediate on the applications and consequently on the awarded applications. If previously 45% of all authors were the award winners, currently it's 4.5. So immediate drop of the popularity, so to speak, of the European Union Literature Prize winners. I'll skip that because it's getting too long, but there are interesting changes going on with these so-called small source languages, again within the European funding scheme, with perhaps most notable being the rise of Swedish as a source language. And that, I have to say, to put it very, very bluntly, the rise of Swedish throughout the last 20 years, more than 20 years, in Europe as a source language it's not just about Stig Larsson. It's really not just about him, but it's the wise combination between the Nordic crime frenzy and the Swedish export policy. really the public support for all sorts of international literary exchange between Sweden and the world, plus the commercial success of the Nordic crime. One last, that's really almost the last one, so please stop me if that's getting too long. Now these are the top 65 authors supported, or authors of the supported titles throughout the last 4 years. This is out of 1,400 authors altogether supported over the last year. And I have to say this is a little bit of unfair. There are gaps in my methodology, and the gap is that I'm looking at the funding results, not at the applications of the publishers. So there is no way I can't have access to the application, so I don't know what's the interest on behalf of the publishers. I can only talk about the results of the selection, but that's still indicative of the interests of the publishers. But yeah, I'm open to discussing the methodology with any one of you who's interested. Now here, these are 4 groups of writers, and can you guess of the top 65 authors most popular in the European funding scheme? Can you guess the first group? What's common? What's common between them? Why I put them in such groups? Sorry? Prize? No. Yes, thank you, Zori. All of them. This is clearly the top authors, but when I say top, I mean 35 out of the top 60. It's all children, young adults, and comics. These guys here, unless maybe some of you would know, I didn't know, I have to say, because I never look at the authors of the comics books, but these are the Smurfs there, Fauzar, Culliford, Dalena. Fauzar is the author, the other 2 are the illustrators. These are top #1 supported book series within the European funding scheme. All these others, and you look so many different languages. It's not just French comics, French-Belgian comics, or Norwegian young adults fiction. It's very different languages. Mostly, I have to say, of course, if we dare to generalize, mostly about coming-of-age stories of young teenagers living in isolation, struggling with depression and anxiety about the future of the world. That's the common thing. I mean, apart from the Smurfs. They're not struggling. So that's, in a way, it mirrors the market tendencies as well, overall market tendencies, if we are to generalize. The second group are the only 2 Nobel Prize winners. Years ago, when I was looking at the results of these funding schemes, there were many more Nobel Prize winners. Now it's just Nobel Prize is Fosse and Tokarczuk, and that's it. By the way, in another study, we looked at the effects of different prizes on writers' careers, and we found that Booker International ensures that you are translated in more languages than Nobel Prize. Because in a way, it's closer to the industry, I guess, than the Nobel. The other group are the European Union Literature Prize winners, as I already said, much smaller than it used to be years ago when the affirmative action was executed towards the prize. And the last one are the last remaining traditional authors of literature and the good old novel or short stories present as the most popular authors in the European scheme, as you can see also from very different languages. And yeah, these are authors that have 4 or more books funded within the scheme. Okay, yeah, I can talk for years about this. I think for all of us, even in the capacity of publishers, but mostly through your professional associations in your countries, of course, via the Federation of European Publishers, the Seattle as the Translators Association, and other advocacy paths that you have. I think we have to all have to advocate for measures, for some of these measures that are here. I'm not gonna go into details. The data that I'm working with has been provided by, it's either available online on some of these national governmental programs website, and the European one has been kindly provided for the purposes of the research by the Creative Europe team in Brussels, to whom I am deeply thankful for sharing the data and to allow us to see certain tendencies. This whole exercise is part of the ThinkPub project that gathers us all today here and yesterday, and particularly this part has been commissioned by Next Page Foundation. Thank you.